So when you connect this whole thing together from the biblical side of things, Tal el-Hammam is in the right place for Sodom. It's in exactly the right time frame for Sodom. It's a massively complex and fabulous ancient city. It's huge. Tal el-Hammam is sitting right in the very location that the Bible specifies for Sodom.
Based on his research, in 2005, Dr. Collins began a multi-year excavation of the Tal el-Hammam ruins, and what he found was extraordinary.
The very first season, we did a 2 by 2 meter probe excavation on the lowest part of the upper city. So we get a couple meters underneath, and boom, we're on top of the destruction matrix of the Middle Bronze Age. All of a sudden, staring up at us was a piece of pottery, the surface of which looked like glazed green glass.
This green glass pottery found in the destruction layer carbon dates back to approximately 1650 BC, which may line up with the biblical account of Sodom. Collins' further analysis also confirms it was a single event involving high heat that obliterated these ruins. But hold up a second. Let's step out from that sooty air and take a breath. Just because an ancient city was destroyed in high heat doesn't mean it was destroyed by the wrath of God. It turns out there's even more to this story, and it will blow your mind, almost like it blew up a city. In 2021, a group of scientists build on the work started by biblical scholar and archaeologist Dr. Stephen Collins. They analyze the ruins at Tal el-Hammam, which he believes may be the actual location of Sodom and Gomorrah, to try and pinpoint the cause of the destruction. Concentrating on the soil found in the destructive layer, they discover tiny, fractured sand grains called shocked quartz. These particles can only form under extreme pressure of 725,000 pounds per square inch or more. Using laboratory furnaces, researchers also find that the pottery and mud bricks at Tal el-Hammam started to liquefy at temperatures above 2,700 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hotter than molten lava.
This research team, they determined that everything about the destruction at Tal el-Hammam is every bit as unique as what we see in a nuclear explosion. But of course, we're not talking about bombs. So the only scientific answer to that question is there was a cosmic event that exploded onto this site.
This type of cosmic event is known as an airburst. Airbursts happen when a meteor comes into Earth's atmosphere at tens of thousands of miles an hour and then explodes. It is a violent and high-heat event that destroys everything in its path.
The resultant destruction we find at Tal el-Hammam is exactly what one would predict if an airburst event had occurred.
So, did a meteor really destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? And how can we scientifically be sure about these cosmic events? Well, because we've seen them happen on Earth before. On the morning of June 30th, 1908, just after 7 a.m., a massive explosion rocks a remote area in Siberia near the Tunguska River. Witnesses report a dazzling blue light streak across the sky, followed by a deafening blast. Shockwaves break windows and knock people off their feet hundreds of miles away. An area of forest the size of Rhode Island is instantly flattened. Scientists believe the Tunguska event, as it becomes known, is caused when a meteor, roughly 150 to 200 feet in diameter, explodes in the atmosphere, creating a devastating fireball. Luckily, that explosion occurred in remote Siberia. The only victims were trees and an unknown number of unfortunate reindeer. But it seems the citizens of Tal el-Hammam aren't so lucky. Picture this. Sometime around 1650 BC, the people of Tal el-Hammam are going about their day blissfully unaware it will be their last. Miles above, a 100-foot space rock is hurtling toward them at 38,000 miles per hour. When the meteor hits the atmosphere, it explodes into a massive fireball. The blast is 1,000 times more powerful than the atom bomb at Hiroshima. The ground heats up to 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. Wood, animals, and people instantly burst into flame. Seconds later, a massive 740-mile-per-hour shockwave rips through the city, demolishing every building, shearing them off their foundations. There are no survivors. The city and its people are here one moment and then gone. Seconds later, a massive 740... It explodes into a massive fireball. The blast is 1,000 times more powerful than the atom bomb at Hiroshima. The ground heats up to 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. Wood, animals, and people instantly burst into flame. Seconds later, a massive 740-mile-per-hour shockwave rips through the city, demolishing every building, shearing them off their foundations. There are no survivors. The city and its people are here one moment and then gone forever. So, could the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah actually have been Tal el-Hammam? The pulverized buildings, the hellish incineration, even the blinding flash of light attributed to the angels could all be explained by a meteor's blast. When seen through the prism of thousands of years, one man's meteor really could be another's angry god. We can't confirm with complete certainty that the ruins of Tal el-Hammam and the fabled Sodom and Gomorrah are the same place. But for the first time, we can say, thanks to extraordinary evidence, that 3,500 years ago, a meteor wiped a vibrant and thriving city off the map. And here's the thing. Meteor strikes like the ones at Tal el-Hammam could in theory happen at any time. There are currently more than 26,000 known near-Earth asteroids, and if one were to strike near a big city, the effects would be devastating. Biblical, even. We now head from two cities destroyed to a monument that has stood the test of time. So this is probably one place I don't need to introduce, the world's most famous stone circle that has been standing in England long before England was even a thing. But today, over 5,000 years after it was constructed, much about Stonehenge remains an enigma. Basics. Stonehenge, huge circle of stones on a hill 88 miles west of London. And the first of its many mysteries is how such huge stones weighing up to 25 tons and over 20 feet tall could have been assembled here 5,000 years ago. Now, new evidence will tell us where they come from, how they got there, and why this wonder of the world was created. When we talk about the lost colony of Roanoke, we're reminded that Native Americans were instrumental in helping settlers survive throughout our history. But few were as vital as Sacagawea. At just 16 years old and having just given birth, this young Shoshone woman joined Lewis and Clark on their epic journey to explore the uncharted West. Sacagawea wasn't just a guide, she was the expedition's compass, navigating uncharted territories, negotiating with tribes, and ensuring everyone made it through alive. And she did it all while carrying a newborn on her back. Her legacy endures, with more statues of Sacagawea across the U.S. than any other woman. So while Roanoke may remain cloaked in mystery, Sacagawea's story is literally carved in stone. It seems Stonehenge is built in two parts. The first phase, constructed in approximately 3100 BC, is the henge, an elevated bank of dirt. This henge has two entrances and an enclosed area longer than a football field. Next, about 6 centuries after the henge is created, the builders shape larger boulders known as sarsens and erect them using a clever system of ropes and timber to leverage their massive weight. And finally, they arrange the smaller blue stones, named for their bluish tint when wet or freshly broken. It is estimated building and modifying Stonehenge takes over 1,500 years at the hands of a staggering 100 generations. So if you think a 40-hour work week sounds like a full-time job, think again. At least your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren don't need to finish your shift. But another mystery looms over Stonehenge. None of its massive stones are native to the immediate area. So where did its extraordinary megaliths come from? For centuries, the best answer to where these monoliths came from was Merlin, the mythical wizard. Just before the time of King Arthur, Merlin is said to steal the stones from Ireland and then enlists giants to reconstruct them at Stonehenge. At least that's according to Middle Age legend. Putting Merlin to the side, the true origin of Stonehenge remains unsolved for centuries. But everything changes in 2020 when geomorphologist David Nash makes a staggering discovery about the iconic, huge sarsen stones and where they came from.
I was contacted by English Heritage, who manage the monument, and they had a core that had been drilled from the middle of one of the stones at Stonehenge and said, would we like to have a look at it? So we analysed 3 samples from that little bit of core that effectively gave us, you might think of it as the fingerprint of Stonehenge. Now, on its own, that doesn't tell you very much, but where it is useful is if you then can compare it with similar chemical signatures or fingerprints from areas where sarsen stones occur naturally. And we didn't think, I guess almost in our wildest dreams, that we would get a direct hit. But of all of the areas that we sampled, only one had a direct chemical match. And that was an area in the Marble Downs, a place called West Woods.
West Woods is 17 miles north of Stonehenge. That's a long way to travel with 25-ton rocks, the equivalent of a humpback whale. The question that still remains, how did they move them?
I think the current consensus is that they were probably moved mainly by land. So the sarsens were loaded onto some kind of wooden sled, and that sled would have been dragged basically to Stonehenge.
If you think moving the sarsen stone 17 miles is far, wait until you hear how far the blue stones traveled to get to Stonehenge.
In comparison to the sarsens, there's been a lot more work trying to figure out whereabouts the blue stones come from. So the blue stones, they come from an area called the Preseli Hills, which are in West Wales. So that's about 150 miles west of Stonehenge.
And in breaking news, it was recently determined that the central altar stone came from the far north of Scotland. That's a 460-mile journey for this megalithic monster. So now that we know where those stones came from, and maybe how they got here, the biggest piece of the puzzle is why. Why were they brought here at all? What was the purpose of this enormous monument? The builders didn't leave any written records, but over the years, compelling theories have emerged. In 2021, I met with Michael Parker Pearson, a Stonehenge expert, who had an amazing discovery that might help explain the purpose of the monument.
When we dug here, what we found was human remains. That was just a fraction of the number of people who were buried here. This place was full of the cremated remains of the dead. It's basically the largest cemetery within Britain for the whole of the 3rd millennium BC.
Incredible.
But then, Pearson came up with a groundbreaking new finding that changes much of what we know about Stonehenge. His theory suggests that people journeyed to the monument because the stones were a sanctuary for healing, believed to cure wounds and illnesses.
Archaeologists have suggested that the blue stones may have themselves held some kind of healing properties. And this isn't just something from the distant past. There's pretty good records of people visiting Stonehenge, chipping pieces off the blue stones and then taking them away with them. So that might be a reason why people bothered transporting multi-ton boulders considerable distances from West Wales to the site where the monument was constructed.
If Stonehenge was a place of healing, the word must have gotten out, because the people trying to get healed didn't only come from Wales, but from all over. For example, the remains of these two men, buried at Stonehenge around 2300 BC, offer fascinating insights into ancient migration. There's isotopic evidence showing that the older of the two men was born in the Alps in Central Europe, traveling hundreds of miles from what would now be known as Switzerland. The analysis of the other man proved that he was a relative who grew up locally. Archaeologists have dubbed the older man the Amesbury Archer because of the many arrowheads found with his skeleton. This 40-year-old man had an abscess that had destroyed part of his jawbone and had suffered an accident that had ripped off his left kneecap, undoubtedly leaving him in constant pain and possibly close to death. It seems that he traveled on foot to Stonehenge all the way from the Alps in Central Europe. Could this have been one last desperate roll of the dice to heal his soon-to-be fatal injuries? And even more intriguing is what was found inside the alien man's burial. Fragments of bluestone, providing more possible evidence that he was drawn from a distant land to the healing stones of the Henge. Anyone who sees Stonehenge knows it was a sacred place. The vast stones rising up, standing tall with a simple beauty. But thanks to what scientists have uncovered, we now know it was also a place of pilgrimage and healing. And today, it still is. Every year, more than 1 million people travel from all over the world, embracing the very same magic our ancestors felt 5,000 years ago. I'm Josh Gates. Until next time, travel adventurously. On Expedition Files, 150 British settlers set up a colony in the New World, and then seemed to disappear forever. Or did they? We may finally know the true story of the Roanoke colony and a biblical tale of two cities wiped off the face of the earth. New evidence suggests we may have uncovered the true fate of Sodom and Gomorrah. And 5,000 years ago, an enormous monument was mysteriously constructed. But now, science may finally reveal the truth behind the secrets of Stonehenge. In the corridors of time are mysteries that defy explanation. Now, I'm traveling through history itself on a search for the truth. New evidence. Shocking answers. I'm Josh Gates, and these are my Expedition Files. Where we're from shapes who we are, but there are some places that shape us even though we've never visited them. Places so strange, so curious, that they loom large in our imaginations. Tonight, we examine the files of three of the most mysterious places on the planet. An ancient biblical city that was said to be brutally wiped off settlers who dared to cross the